around the country, in many parts of the country. In fact, nearly a third of this country will be using those very machines to vote this November. But the federal government now admits it will not be able to test or to certify the millions of electronic voting machines in time for the presidential election. As Katie Pilgrim reports, those machines, well, you guessed it, they're going to be used anyway.
New York State is voting in the presidential election the old-fashioned way, by lever machines. The co-chairman of the New York State Board of Elections says they are so disturbed by the lack of testing on electronic voting machines, the state will not purchase electronic voting equipment until federal testing is reliable.
The simple fact is that there is not a single piece of election equipment on the market today that complies with all of the current federal standards.
States like California, Florida, Maryland, Tennessee, and Iowa are in the process of replacing electronic voting machines for November, often with paper ballots. Ohio Secretary of State Jennifer Brunner is going one step further, suing the voting machine company Diebold to recover the millions the state spent on the machines. Most voters in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Indiana, and Virginia will use touchscreen machines that don't have a paper trail.
Machines are going to be used in this election that never should have been qualified, never should have been passed through the system because they actually don't meet the standards. And they're out there now and going to be voted on in November.
In 6 years of federal testing, private labs did the testing for certification. But those tests were often commissioned by the voting machine companies themselves. In early 2007, the Election Assistance Commission was set up to tighten up testing, but since that time, no new equipment has been certified. Now they are out of time to certify any new equipment before the election in November. Now, the Election Assistance Commission says they have had a lot of problems with the voting machine companies and the testing labs not complying with their testing requirements. That's why the pace has been so slow in testing election equipment, Lou.
Well, darn. Those darn manufacturers of these things, those darn testing companies, it's still the United States. Can't they require this before they invest taxpayer money and put everybody at risk with this?
I think New York State has the best idea. Just hold off till you can get the right machine. Well, but you know, the fact is it's not required. It's not mandatory.
Well, it's not mandatory.
It's not mandatory. Testing is not mandatory.
It is mandatory that you go to these machines, but it isn't mandatory that they work, which is sort of becoming the American way. But so what we have here is a situation in just about half the country will be voting without knowing whether or not they're just throwing that vote out into the ether and without any way to prove otherwise, right?
That's what voter activists tell us. It's a tough call.
And then combined with that, the fact that no one knows who's registering to vote and no one's enforcing voter registration laws in any state in this country, we could have quite a result this November, couldn't we?
It's a little disheartening, yes.
Disheartening. No, it's infuriating.
Yes, it is, Lou. It's infuriating.
It is. And what's great, of all of the political activists in this country, where are the people saying, we've got to control who's registering to vote, or who is voting who isn't registered, or who is registering but improperly or unlawfully?
Right.
There's not a single, to my knowledge, maybe you can correct me, to my knowledge, not a single barrier against just rampant, broad voter fraud.
No, these machines have been routinely hacked by scientists. These machines are unreliable, flat out unreliable at this point.
So we have unreliable registration procedures, we have unreliable voting procedures, and so we're just supposed to accept whatever happens.
That's what it looks like for this November, yes.
That's democracy in action, as they say. Thanks a lot. Katie Pilgrim.